Hi, thank you for asking me to qualify. It's I'm feeling quite nervous. I don't do well with technology, so um, I kind of had a bit of a panic when I was trying to get on because I'd lost the connection. But I'm here, so I'm grateful. And yeah, I'll talk a bit about what life was like before GreySheet, um, and how it's been since, and how it is today. Um, I had I've been a compulsive eater, I think, my whole life really. I first noticed it in childhood when I used to go and eat in secret, and I can remember being about 6 and feeling some sort of dissatisfaction that only kind of the things we don't eat could satisfy. So I remembered that, quite early on. And I went through my life balancing that. I was always, as I grew up, I was always on a diet. I was either dieting or I was binging, and I was constantly yoing with my weight. But I somehow managed to live, and I held down a career. I qualified as a social worker, and I worked, and then I reached the age of 40, and I fell apart basically, and my life kind of fell apart, and I had a breakdown. And I think that was when I stopped being able to manage. I have a secondary condition of recurrent depression and anxiety. And it was when I stopped being able to put on a front, because somehow I always, I always imagined that people didn't know I was a compulsive eater, because I would never eat compulsively in front of people. It was always in secret. But I kind of should have known, really, because they could tell from the size of me. I put on weight. I wasn't, I was I wasn't a very successful bulimic. And I gradually put on more and more weight. And then I would lose it all, and then I would put it all back on again. And so the cycle developed as I got older. And I think I first came into GreySheet in 2006, and by that point I was literally on my knees. I had severe disability because I was so morbidly obese, and I weighed 468 pounds at that time. And I had all the disability, the physical disability, and I was trapped in my body, really. I gradually, as I reached, between my 40s and my 50s, I became more and more disabled. And but I came into the meeting. I'd witnessed somebody else that I'd met in OA who was doing GreySheet, and I'd witnessed their recovery. And I'd looked into GreySheet before, but it always seemed way too extreme. I can't possibly do that. It's sort of, all the excuses that we make for ourselves that, I'm not that bad. And I was that bad, because I was living a nightmare, really. And so I came into the rooms, and because I came from such high numbers, the thing that I'd always found with before was that I'd previous to GreySheet was I would follow diets. I followed OA. I would kind of do very well for a few months, 6 months. I went on liquid fasts. I had my jaws wired. I tried everything, even to the point that I was about to have surgery, a gastric band. And so it wasn't that I wasn't addressing the problem. I was trying really hard, but I was doing one thing. I wasn't, even when I had my jaws wired, I was still managing to binge, because there's a lot you can get through jawed wires. So I wired jaws, kind of that's calorific. And I used to cut the wires, and sorry, I hadn't thought about that for a while. And it was really desperate times. So when I came in, I was so desperate, and I was willing, and I was teachable. And I just thought, well, I'll just try it. I'd kind of given up hope of my life changing, because at that point I was housebound, and I'd given up hope that things would change, because as I say, I'd been yo-yoing for so long. But something happened when I started following the GreySheet. The first kind of few weeks, it was tricky, but I was so busy with all this chopping and shopping and, kind of preparing my food. And I'd stopped doing that. I'd stopped preparing my food. I was living on takeaways and easily eatable things, things that I could just cram in my mouth. And so I came into GreySheet, and somehow it taught me self-care, and it worked, kind of gradually. It wasn't gradually, actually, it was quite fast. Initially, it felt like, the weight was coming off. But because I weighed and measured my food, and because I weighed and measured myself, and I was told not to concentrate on the numbers, I was told by my sponsor, kind of not to concentrate on the numbers, just to hand it over every month, hand over my weight, and then forget about it. And that's what I did. And so I didn't get caught up in the numbers game. And it was a miracle, really, because I started feeling I had the clear-headedness that I got from abstinence, and that I was out of the food fog. I did the steps, and I had a clarity that I'd never known before. And within 2 or 3 years, I was down to a normal sized body. And that was a miracle, because that had never happened to me. But all I had to do was just keep doing the same thing. And so I had about 8 years of grace, and that's all I can call it, really. It was grace, because I had, kind of difficult days. It wasn't that life was straightforward and I was living in a bubble or anything, but somehow things didn't get worse. And I survived that time I survived abstinence, through breast cancer, colonic surgery, and, kind of all sorts of things. And I had stayed abstinent. And then about 3 years ago, what must have been about 2015, I just started listening. I stopped listening to the message, and I started listening to my own crazy head again. And I told myself, I can do this, I don't need GreySheet. And I just left, just like that. It wasn't just like that. It was a build-up of me not doing the steps, not going to meetings, not calling people. Thanks very much. And since then, I've had, I came out for a year, and during that year, the disease was as ferocious as ever. And I didn't, it was as ferocious as ever, and I was back into the nightmare again. But it took me a year to decide, well, you know, I think I need to go back to GreySheet. And it's been 3 years since, getting on for, 3 years since I first tried to get back. And I had so many day ones. And I think I got grace at the beginning of my GreySheet journey. And I couldn't really relate to people in relapse because I didn't have the same experience. I had experience outside GreySheet, but not kind of within GreySheet. And I had 3 years of day ones and struggling, and I'd get to 90 days and I'd get to 3 days, and it was just a living nightmare. And, you know, kind of, and then by the grace of God, since November last year, all I've done, you know, what I've done is weighed and measured. If I'm in trouble, if I contact my sponsor and I say I'm struggling with this, and say, just weigh your next meal. And that's all I have to do, is weigh my next meal and stay in the solution. I'm sorry, this is quite a bit, but I'm just so grateful. And I don't think I've got another day one in me. I know I haven't. I came in into the rooms when I was 53, and I'm 60. I'll be 67 next birthday. Sorry, I really struggle with sharing because I want to present the message, and I want to share my experience. But it's been a long disease with me. You know, for over 60 years, I've been a compulsive eater, and I'm still a compulsive eater. Thank you. I'll wind up now. But I'm grateful today because I know that I'm in the right place, that I'm living in the solution. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much.